Geoff, lately I've been reflecting a lot on our journey on entrepreneurial leadership, and I think we're both super excited and passionate about this topic, and I think it's been an amazing journey to where we are now. And one of the things I've been reflecting on was really some of my studies and when I was at Duke was around Da Vinci's methodology of learning.
Sure.
And at the end of the day, when we look at Da Vinci, the estimations are his IQ would have been anywhere between 180 and 220, which would have put him past the Elon Musks and the Mark Zuckerbergs of this world. And as much as we know the future is different, we've got to learn from history and, from a master artist and an eccentric individual. But what's interesting is his philosophies on life, and which have always resonated with me. And I really believe there's a strong correlation to entrepreneurial leadership. And so some of the things he used in his philosophy was the deep desire for curiosity in life, the deep desire to experiment and to learn from real experimentation, to appreciate the wholeness of the brain, the right and the left side of the brain, and how they work differently, as well as the interconnectedness of life. He was a master at the interconnectedness of life. And so when I reflect on some of those key philosophies of his own learning methodology, and what we've really put together in entrepreneurial leadership, there's such a strong correlation there. And so for me, it was just a reflection of someone in history who is enormously powerful, but has got some powerful philosophies, and it's wonderful to see that these are still resonate and still have absolute validity.
Yeah, it's an interesting subject. I mean, Da Vinci, look, if we can park that, but I mean, I look at someone like Zuckerberg, I look at Elon Musk. I mean, he did actually take an awful lot of propaganda, particularly not just when he was at Tesla, because the board, he had some big issues with the board over his leadership style. But the bigger one that came to surface was obviously Twitter. And, he was firing people left, right and center, if you recall. And there was all the media went to test and saying, well, what is the fact that he's a great innovator, he's a great visionary, does it actually make you a good leader? And then if you bring it back, there's a massive piece of debate around that in terms of the people piece and the human piece, and more importantly, the leadership on where we are today and how leaders need to behave. More importantly, how leaders need to lead. Accountability, is it responsibility, serpent leadership, for a better word, which I know our good friend Oak is an advocate for. But yeah, look, I understand where you're coming from. I understand the link, but then you've got to then humanize it and humble it, and then say, what makes a great leader? And I think that was the premise, really, for bringing entrepreneurial leadership back to us, because bringing entrepreneurial leadership down was very much about addressing you might have the academics, but then do you have the intelligences? More importantly, you've got to have the mindset to lead.
I think you're right, and if I go back to our skills and attributes that we've defined, and you're absolutely right, visionary is just one of the capabilities, but you've got to complement that with others, and the ability to translate into action, the ability to manage an operating rhythm of an organization, but then to have strong people leadership and personal qualities and attributes that underpin that, and I think that's that brings it to life, is that entrepreneurial leadership is around a unique combination of these skills and attributes. That's not just in one person, but it's actually in a leadership team. And then how does that unlock itself in an organization or in a business?
100%. I don't know if you recall, but I did write an article some time ago regarding, what have we learned from the Romans and what are the learnings? And more importantly, are we using those learnings in everything we do today? Because I know one of your big subjects is very much about, we should be in a learning and development area where we should be constantly looking to think outside the box, but we should be learning. We should constantly learn. We should never be bored of learning. We should constantly inspire to learn and to grow. And so you could actually question, on a daily, monthly, yearly basis, or some of the biggest and greatest leaders that we have today in our world, are we taking ideas from the past? I mean, I look at the Romans. I mean, in England, we've got a lot of old Roman villas, and I remember going to a Roman villa in the Cotswolds, and fascinating to see things like underfloor heating, and how they designed and facilitated this, and the immense amount of detail. Well, if you look at that and you bring that into business, yes, there's the learning about underfloor heating, but more importantly, their minds were incredibly forward-thinking, and the Trojan horse approach, they got it done. So to speak, right? They actually executed. And what we are seeing at the moment is an inability to be accountable, inability to be responsible, and inability to actually execute. We all talk about strategy and theory, but it's like where theory meets reality, and the real value is not in the words and the systems development, but it's actually in the execution. Right, and I'm not seeing too many really great examples of that execution. And what I am seeing, as we discussed earlier, is productivity is way down on where it should be.
I was just about to raise that topic of productivity. We know it's a substantial problem, and I think where we're excited about entrepreneurial leadership is
very
that,
much so.
Again, through this mindset and belief system, is how do you get an operating rhythm that is sustainable, and actually that you address productivity, and that productivity becomes a non-event effectively if you get all these ingredients right and mixing them at the right time and in the journey of the entity. So I think that's what makes you and I so passionate about entrepreneurial leadership.
100%.
And I think the other thing is it's not theory. This is stuff we see every day. It's stuff that we've again, coming back to Da Vinci's learning of interconnectedness, between us, immense amount of experience and wisdom is connecting all the dots and learning, and how do we use them going forward?
And I'll take it to another level. We talk about the mindset. You can possess all of the visionary skills that you need to be successful. You can possess the academia. You can possess actually the wisdom, the knowledge, the trust even to a degree. We saw in the pandemic where people were using video calls and video conference calls, video workshops, video everything. I mean, me and you were on, I think, 10 or 12 calls a day, and it was getting to the point of, it's too much, right? And then people weren't utilizing etiquette, video call or meeting etiquette. I've got a hard stop on the 45, or I've got a hard stop on the hour. That doesn't, if you're into you're asking the right questions and you're into a granular communication, you've just got the connection, then you need to keep going because that's where the goodness is, right? In the Q&A. But more importantly, the innovation and creativity, and I know that we shared that. I looked at the research paper around the statistics of that, and that's sort of, on a video call, you'll generate 6.7 ideas compared to 10.58 if you're in a meeting room or in a workshop environment. As far as I'm concerned, that's the difference between success and failure. And people are still today, using the video calls to facilitate big meetings where they haven't got all the data and they're making informed decisions on a day-to-day basis, and they don't understand the risks attached to such forums.
Yeah, I think what resonates as I was listening to you carefully there was this busyness and life that we have, and certainly technology has been an enabler to make it even busier. But one that says, do we take the time to pause and listen carefully to someone? Right. Or do we just brush past them and we just miss that moment, we miss that opportunity, and maybe there's something in that discussion that had you furthered it to the next level of conversation. You could unlock something, and there's something in that, and it comes back to that curiosity, that curious mindset that you and I are so passionate about. So I think I'm super excited to be working with our customers that we have now, and our new customers going forward in terms of what entrepreneurial leadership
Yeah,
will
yeah.
bring. But I think also for us, it's having fun with our customers and
Yeah.
enjoying the journey. And,
100%.
and when you do that, you actually achieve the impossible. And I'm looking forward to that journey with you, Geoff, and going forward. And
Yeah, I think there's one other point I want to continue. I want to just continue a little bit when you start talking about bringing people together, particularly cultures lost in translation. The amount of people that are not heard because they don't understand. And it's not for lack of wanting to express oneself. It's actually lost in translation in either their culture, their language, and being understood. Because as you know, active listening is incredibly important, but we all need to have better, we need to, that pause that you talk about and listen and digest and understand, but it comes through compassion and empathy. Before you can understand, you shouldn't be communicating. And we see a lot of that. And I do agree with you. This journey of entrepreneurial leadership is, really exciting. I mean, in terms of, for us, product development, but it's more importantly for our customers and more importantly, how we can make that difference as you've always talked about. So.
Absolutely.
So Doug, it's been great today to be able to just spend some absolute sort of quality time in thought and reflection. And if I sum up the whole day, and I've got we have talked about trust, but I think one of the things we haven't discussed today is, do you think organizations, do you think boards, do you think C-suite, do you think senior managers ever learn from mistrust or failure as a direct result of lack of trust?
Geoff, I think it's a profound question that you ask. I think the simple answer is probably, do they realize it often enough? No.
Yeah.
Positively, I've been part of a process where I was in a large organization and we had a failure of trust, and it was significant. It was with customers, it was with regulators, so it was material trust, and clearly there was a change of executive in charge. And it was an amazing journey of 5 years looking at the CEO and how he realized, him and his team, the failure of having that trust, diminishing, and he rebuilt it. It took him time. It didn't happen overnight. It was long, hard work, but he put a very smart plan in place, him and his leadership team, to rebuild trust across the organization, firstly with employees, then with clients and with the regulators. That culminated in a significant turnaround of the business over that period of time. And but he created excitement out of it. He created simple things like, he had his own scorecard. It was a one-pager that he presented every 6 months to every single person in the organization, all 36,000 of us. And he would say, guys, I got 4 out of 10 this time around. And building trust was right up there, and he had every single one of those 10, he had the ability to measure. And that was the other key thing. And so there was an example of a turnaround, a successful turnaround, premised primarily on actually appreciating that the failure was trust and a breach of trust, and he rebuilt it. And that leadership team, does that happen often enough? Absolutely not.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And that's the challenge I think we face.
I think we get to a point where we're actually looking at, we need boards, management, and C-suite to adopt a culture of trust, and the big question is, how many organizations are actually prepared to actually do the fixing that you've sort of described? I mean, the Edelman report year after year just talks about a diminishing amount of trust in organization and how things are actually declining. And I think the good news is, I think we address trust within entrepreneurial leadership, but we address it in leadership and in culture, and I think that's incredibly invaluable for any organization.
I think absolutely, and where I'm excited about the impact that trust has on and plays a part in the secret sauce of entrepreneurial leadership. Is actually trust is a massive enabler for growth.
Absolutely.
And that was evident in that turnaround situation that I'd experienced. And so sometimes we think it's this esoteric, philosophical view of the world, trust, and it's out there and it's somebody else's problem. But actually it's an enabler to unlock something significant in your business. And when you can unlock that amongst your employees, your stakeholders, your customers, the communities you operate in, you can unlock something special. And Geoff, I was at the helm of a very large project many years ago that spanned 22,000 staff and 6 million customers, and that 6 million probably affected a community of 20 million people, and it was failing. The project was failing, and it was a collaboration project with the community, and we turned it around. But we turned it around by building trust and putting all the foundations in to build trust. At the end of the day, the financial success was actually a byproduct because it came naturally. But the impact that we had in society, and I think this is where I'm so passionate about and excited about entrepreneurial leadership, is that this is about actually making a difference in society through the clients that we work with and through their stakeholders, their customers, and the families of those communities, and making a difference. And that's what I think drives our purpose in life, is to make a difference.
Well,
to
leadership
the world.
needs leadership with trust, and trusted leadership needs to drive collaboration. It needs to drive teamwork, and your ecosystem is your community.
Correct, absolutely correct. Yeah. So I'm super excited. I think it's hard work. Building trust takes time.
Always.
And but I think it's to have the right foundations, put the right things in, but also don't overcomplicate it. I think it's leading by action versus words. And
it's action, credible actions.
Exactly, and it's not difficult. But where I'm really excited is actually it is an enabler for growth. You just know how to use it and to inculcate it into your DNA. So I think that's also adds to our passion about entrepreneurial leadership as well.
Yeah, let's not forget mindset.
Absolutely, curious mindset.
Curious mindset.